You know, the hardest part of losing someone isn't when they walk out the door. It's when they're still right there next to you, physically present, but the soul of who they were, the parts you fell in love with, are already gone. That's exactly what happened with Laura. When we first got together, everything felt so easy. Her love wasn't something I had to ask for. It just flowed out of her. She'd hold me like she never wanted to let go, sneak kisses when I least expected them, always reaching for my hand, even during the most ordinary moments. It was effortless, sincere. Back then, love was a presence I could feel in every touch, every glance. It was constant, overwhelming in the best way, and absolutely real. But over time, something started to shift. It didn't happen all at once. That's the part that really gets you. It wasn't an explosion, it was erosion. A slow fade you don't notice until it's already done its damage. At first, it was little things. The hugs lost their warmth. Instead of pulling me close, she'd give me a quick pat on the back. The kisses grew shorter, emptier. No more lingering moments where the world would disappear. Now it was more like a chore, like checking off a box on a to-do list. And I made excuses. Told myself she was tired or stressed or just distracted. Anything but the truth I didn't want to face, that the connection was slipping away and she wasn't doing anything to save it. So I tried harder. I figured if I just poured more into us, more time, more thought, more money, maybe I could bring her back. I planned romantic weekends, bought her the designer bag she'd pointed in passing, surprised her with dinners we couldn't really afford. I thought if I surrounded her with beautiful things, she might remember the beautiful thing we had. But instead, I got less. Less affection, less effort, less interest. Meanwhile, her expectations kept rising. It felt like love had turned into some kind of exchange. As long as I kept up the payments, I could keep her around, but nothing more. Every time I brought home something special, she'd smile that perfect, empty smile, peck me on the lips like she was clocking in for a shift, then go right back to texting someone else. And the worst part? I still wanted her. Still wanted her to care. There's a particular kind of loneliness that hits you when you're lying next to someone you love, and you feel more alone than if the bed were empty. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling while she turned her back to me, lit up by her phone screen. I'd ache to hold her, to pull her close, but I wouldn't, because I already knew how it would go. Cold, stiff, like hugging a mannequin. I couldn't handle another silent rejection. So I stayed still, pretending to sleep while my heart split quietly in the dark. To everyone else, we still looked like the perfect couple. We smiled in photos. She clung to my arm at family gatherings. But behind closed doors, the warmth was gone. The kisses were gone. She was gone. I even tried bringing it up once. Told her I felt like we were drifting. She laughed, and said I was being dramatic. Then she went right back to her phone, like I'd interrupted her show with a commercial. So I worked even harder, bought more, planned more, gave more. I became a one-man rescue operation, desperately trying to save something that didn't want to be saved. I drained myself emotionally, mentally, even financially, just hoping for a flicker of the love we used to have. But the more I gave, the more I disappeared. Eventually, I wasn't a partner anymore. I was a wallet, a background prop in her curated life. And the twisted thing? I still held on to hope, still believed she'd turn around. That maybe if I just waited a little longer, gave a little more, she'd come back to me. The real her. But deep down, I knew love doesn't just fade on its own. It dies when someone stops nurturing it, when they stop seeing it as something precious and start treating it like an obligation. The turning point came on my birthday. It wasn't a big celebration, just dinner with a couple of close friends. She barely even acknowledged it. No hug, no card, no thoughtful words. She spent most of the night glued to her phone, laughing at messages from people who didn't even bother to show up. When the waiter brought out a tiny cake, the one I had to order myself because she forgot, she clapped a few times, smiled without looking me in the eyes, and went right back to scrolling. No gift, no. I love you. Just a woman sitting across from me, completely detached. And I sat there pretending everything was okay, just so no one would notice the truth. But something broke inside me that night, quietly, completely. It wasn't anger, it was clarity. I realized I was spending another year of my life with someone who didn't care that I was even alive. I paid the bill, drove us home in silence. And that night, while she curled up on her side like I wasn't even there, I lay awake and thought about every single moment I had given her all of me and received nothing in return. Every dinner, every vacation, every time I tried to bring her happiness and was met with indifference. And it hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. I had been financing my own heartbreak. Every gift, every surprise, every plan was just me investing in a love that no longer existed. It wasn't about the money. It was about dignity. I deserved to be loved because of who I was, not because of what I could provide. So, right there in the dark, while she breathed softly beside me like everything was fine, I made a decision. Not out of anger, not out of spite, just pure, unshakable certainty. No more. No more buying her affection. No more rewarding her silence. No more pretending. I wasn't her sponsor. I wasn't her bank. I was a man who had built a life and deserved to be part of it. Not tolerated, not used. And that was the beginning of the end. The day I chose self-respect over the illusion of love. From the ground up, I built a life with sweat, sacrifice, and countless sleepless nights. And I wasn't about to hand it over to someone who couldn't even look me in the eyes anymore. That next morning, I quietly began to take back control. No shouting, no warnings, just action. First, I canceled all the joint credit cards. Then, I opened new bank accounts she didn't have access to. I stopped sending her money for personal expenses. I didn't make a big announcement or invite a fight. I just shut off the faucet. The first sign of trouble for her came when she tried to buy a $500 pair of shoes, and her card was declined. She approached me with that same sugar-coated tone she used when she wanted something. "Babe," she cooed, "I think something's wrong with my card." I smiled calmly and said, "No, it's working exactly as it should." The look on her face was priceless, confused, annoyed, and something she wasn't used to feeling, powerless. She tried to joke, flirt, manipulate, but this time I didn't play along. For the first time in a long while, I was reclaiming my self-respect, and that terrified her. I saw it in the way she started snapping over small things. "You're being selfish. You're changing. You don't care about me anymore." The irony was staggering. After years of watching her drain the love out of our relationship, she had the audacity to accuse me of indifference. But I stayed composed because now I knew something she didn't. When you take away the money from someone who never loved you in the first place, the truth reveals itself. And it's never pretty. It wasn't stress. It wasn't life being hard. It wasn't us growing apart. It was simple. She didn't love me anymore. She loved the lifestyle, the gifts, the comfort. Without the trips, designer handbags, and indulgences, there was nothing left between us. The warmth she once gave freely had disappeared. The kisses that used to linger were now just echoes of a past that no longer existed. The woman I had fallen for had traded her affection for material things. And when the gifts stopped coming, so did any effort. But I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was awake, fully and painfully awake, and that awareness felt like a weight being lifted. I knew a confrontation was coming. She'd either try to manipulate me even harder, or she'd leave. Either way, I was ready. Not because I had stopped loving her, but because I had finally started loving myself. And that self-love meant no more begging for affection, no more being anyone's financial safety net, no more shrinking to fit into a world built around someone else's selfishness. I deserved something real. And if that meant starting over, so be it. I'd rather rebuild from ashes than keep living like a ghost in a house that no longer had space for me. That was the moment everything shifted, the moment I drew the line. And everything that came after, that's when the real story began. When you finally draw that line, you think you're prepared for what follows. But nothing prepares you for the raw honesty life throws your way once you stop pretending. The minute I stopped financially supporting Laura, the cracks in her facade began to widen. She acted confused at first, slamming drawers, banging plates, sighing loudly. All little acts meant to guilt me into relenting. But I didn't budge. And that's when the entitlement started leaking out. The fake sweetness vanished. Her words became colder. her looks sharper. She started treating me like a broken machine, one that had stopped serving its purpose. No more kisses, no more fake affection, just silence, a cold, suffocating silence that said everything she was too proud or too cowardly to admit. I only mattered when I was giving her something. About a week later, she marched into the living room without warning, her eyes full of contempt. "You've changed," she spat. I set down my book, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "No, I just stopped paying for a love that was never real." The truth hit her like a slap. She opened her mouth to fight back, but there was nothing left to say. She knew it. I knew it. The game was over. After that night, she moved into the guest room. We barely spoke. She walked past me like I was invisible, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. Even after all the coldness and neglect, there was still a part of me that mourned what we used to be. That tiny flicker of hope whispered that maybe, just maybe, she'd realize what she was losing. But that hope didn't last long. Because when you stop pouring yourself into a one-sided relationship, the ugly truth becomes clear. You were the only one ever fighting for it. She didn't miss me. She missed the luxury, the ease, the perks. One day, I overheard her on the phone with a friend complaining about how cheap I'd become. Not a word about love. Not a mention of the man I was. Just resentment about no longer being pampered. And right there, the final nail was hammered in. I didn't hate her. I pitied her. Anyone who measures love in material things is incapable of the depth, respect, and loyalty I deserve. So, I made a decision that broke my heart and freed it at the same time. I told her to leave. No screaming, no pleading, just a calm, firm statement. This isn't a marriage. It's a transaction, and I'm done paying for it. She looked stunned, tried to spin around, play the victim. But once you know your worth, their tricks stop working. Her words couldn't touch me anymore. Within a week, she was gone. No tears, no apologies, just cold packing and silence. When the door shut behind her, I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I sat down, breathed deep, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not joy, not relief, just a quiet stillness that comes when you stop lying to yourself. When you finally let go of something dead because you're no longer afraid to be alone. The first few weeks after she left were strange. The house felt huge, quiet. I'd wake up expecting to feel her beside me, but I was alone. And slowly, I started to come back to life. I cooked meals I liked. I played guitar again, even though she once mocked it. I reconnected with friends she said didn't fit her image. Piece by piece, I rediscovered the man I used to be. And it wasn't about the money, it was about freedom. Freedom to exist without fear, to be loved without conditions, to breathe without debt to someone's expectations. And once you taste that freedom, you can never go back. I didn't respond when she reached out months later with vague messages. I didn't chase after closure. Regret isn't love. It's just the pain of losing an easy ride. Today, I live differently. I invest in people who love me without price tags. I remember that my time, affection, and presence are not commodities. And if that means standing alone until someone truly worthy comes along, then I'll wait. Because I'd rather stand alone with dignity than lie next to someone who sees me as a paycheck. I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm reborn. And if you're hearing this, maybe it's because deep down, you know you deserve better too. Better than conditional love. Better than hollow affection. Better than a relationship built on receipts and convenience. Real love doesn't cost a thing. And if they can't give it, walk away. Because sometimes losing someone you thought you needed is life's way of giving you back to yourself.